God is your provider. Yeshua is your provider. He is your sustainer, the glory and the lifter of your head. Go to him and he will provide. But 153 points to Yeshua as the divine Messianic King. Psalm 24:8, the King of glory, Melech HaKavod Adonai. Melech HaKavod Adonai. That has a value of one. That phrase, the King of glory, has a numerical value of, guess what? 153, right? Who is the King of glory? Adonai, strong and mighty. Adonai, mighty in battle. Yeshua, as the promised Messianic King, is another central theme of John. So one of the central themes of John is showing Yeshua as the one who is divine, through whom creation came forth, through the agent of creation, but also he is the promised Messianic King. And that is another central theme to the book of John, right? This is how the book of John begins. It emphasizes this point from the very first chapter, John 141. First, he finds his brother Simon, tells him, we found the Messiah, which is translated anointed one. And Messiah means the Messianic King who descends from David. Now, I'll tell you something funny. I didn't know that growing up, right? Well, I knew that, but Christians don't call him Jesus the Messiah, or in Hebrew, Yeshua HaMashiach. Christians tend to call him Jesus Christ. Well, I thought Jesus Christ, I thought Christ was his last name. Just like I'm Jason Sobel, we're the Sobel family, meet Mr. and Mrs. Christ, Joseph, Mary, Jesus Christ, the Christ family. I had no idea that Christ was the Greek for the English, was the Greek for the Hebrew, Mashiach or Messiah. So Christos or Christ means anointed one. It's just the Greek version of Messiah or Mashiach, right? So again, John is trying to show him from the very beginning that he is the Messiah, and Messiah is the king who descends from David. John 1:49, Rabbi, Nathanael answered, you are Ben Elohim, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. So twice in the first chapter, he's associated with being the King of Israel. When he died as the Passover lamb, okay, and as we're going to see, lamb equals 153, okay, above his head, there was a sign, Pilate wrote a sign and put it on the execution stake, and it was written, Yeshua HaNatzrati, Yeshua of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Again, so at the end of John 19, again, focusing King of the Jews. Yeshua as the Messianic King is highlighted at the end of John and is the primary reason why John wrote his gospel. Okay, this is John 20. Yeshua performed many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which were not written in this book. But these things have been written so that you may believe that Yeshua is the Mashiach, Ben Elohim, Messiah, Son of God, and that by believing him, you might have life in his name. This is exactly the reverse of, again, what is said in the very beginning of John 1. You are Ben Elohim, the King of Israel. It's the reverse. But from beginning to end, John is trying to show Yeshua as the promised Messianic King of Israel, the fulfillment of this. And 153 points to that. Because who is the King of glory? 153. It is Yeshua. But of course, there's more, right? So from a Hebraic perspective, the king is thought to be and is meant to be the provider and sustainer of his people, right? He's to make sure that his people are provided for and sustained. And when the kings of Israel obeyed God, God provided the early and the latter rain. There was abundant crops. God blessed the people. Think about in the days of David and Solomon, ultimately the peace and prosperity, the wealth, how people prospered when the king's hearts were faithful to God. Okay? So the great catch of fish shows practically that Yeshua was the promised Messianic King, right? So Yeshua, we talked about this before, but after Yeshua performs the miracle of the multiplication, what does he do? He feeds the 5,000. And when the people saw the sign that Yeshua performed, they began to say to him, this most certainly is the prophet. Prophet is another term for the prophet like Moses, Deuteronomy 18:18, the Messianic King, who is coming to the world. Realizing that, they were about to come and seize him by force to make him king. Yeshua withdrew to the mountain himself alone. So 153 points to his kingship. The theme of John is kingship. Even when he did the miracle of the multiplication of the bread and fish, they wanted to make him king. The point is 153 points to Yeshua as the agent of creation and divine messianic king who provides and sustains his people. God is your provider. Yeshua is your provider. He is your sustainer, the glory and the lifter of your head. Go to him and he will provide. What the Lord did for the disciples, he wants to do for you. Even if you feel your nets are empty, trust me, God can fill them. As it says, this is promised. May God fulfill every need according to the riches of his glory in Messiah Yeshua. We need to stand on these New Testament promises that God will provide every one of your needs according to the riches in Messiah Yeshua.